spoken, we've engaged over LinkedIn and some of the other means of communication. You bring in 18 years of experience of growing businesses, particularly in the aerospace industry. And we'll be talking today to you about the industry and your journey as a leader.
Sure.
So why don't we start with knowing more about Vikram Rai as a leader? What defines you, Vikram, as a leader?
I think what defines me as a leader, I would say 3-4 things, right? One is passion to be number one, right? Be a leader, be number one in whatever you do. Second is teamwork. How can I inspire my team to give the best every time they step onto the field, every time they do anything that is goal oriented, target oriented in their personal life. And the third, I think, is belonging to the organization. You know, I mean, we should consider ourselves very lucky to be working with organizations like a GE Aviation, etc. So that sense of belonging, every time I step into office, every time I open my laptop, every time I'm answering my email, that sense of belonging to deliver for the organization is something that kind of defines me as a leader. To deliver the best, to turn corners, kind of meet impossible deadlines, deliver on goals, customer focus, customer commitment, customer support. So that I kind of fill into the organization commitment, organization belonging bucket.
Excellent. So Vikram, we were talking about just before we kind of got started, we were talking about how the longevity in the broader scheme of things is receding when it comes to people. And you talking about the uniqueness of aviation as an industry and as a sector. So what are your views? What is it that differentiates aviation as a sector from the other industries where we are seeing the lifespans of an employee shortening?
So just what we were discussing, I think aviation as a sector is a very glamorous sector, first of all, right? And you basically divide aviation into, I would probably say, 3 parts, right? One is the airline industry, right? In the airline industry, you don't see a lot of longevity, and the turnaround time is very low, so you will have people who come working for 3-4 years in an airline jumping out because the number of airlines is so big. There are hundreds of airlines around the world, right? The second is the airport sector, right? There you will see people having kind of a medium turnaround time, 4 to 6, 5 to 6 years, because again, number of airports are again higher, but within airport verticals, there are a lot of roles and responsibilities people can do. So people move over that function. The third things are OEMs, OEMs, lessors, that's all. So if you see, in aviation, as I was discussing, the number of large OEMs are just 4 or 5, number of big lessors are 4 or 5, and so people are also few. So you will see that those people only move around those specific industries, specific companies. And I was saying, somebody who kind of goes and says, I sell an aircraft engine or I sell an airplane. So, the pride that comes along with it, right? It automatically translates to a sense of belonging, and you kind of end up doing this only. For example, 18 years of my experience, as I was talking, of which about close to 14 years is selling aircraft engines only. And the remaining 4-5 years was with the startup in airport sector, where I was doing passenger boarding bridges, radars, instrument landing systems. And as a 23, 24-year-old going into, meeting people and saying, look, I'm a business development manager of a startup which sells instrument landing systems, radars, that sense of pride, that sense of belonging. And at that time, 2003, 2004, Indian aviation was just turning the corner. So that really kind of, that commitment, that sense of belonging, that pride, and that niche that aviation sector brings is unparalleled, I would say.
So I'll ask you another question. How the traditional industries are not so lucrative when it comes to the mainstream talent acquisition. When I see your journey as well, you
Right.
came from the Air Force School, then you kind of did your engineering and then took this path, very structured path. Do you see room for unstructured employment also, particularly in the OEM space?
Why not? You know,
What are the areas?
so for example, you can, so at the end of the day, when you say in an OEM space, what are the deliverables required? At the end, if you have a customer focused mindset, you have a sound financial brain, and you're innovative. Innovation or out of box thinking works very well in our domain because the deal size in our business is huge, right? It runs into billions of dollars, millions of dollars, etc., depending on the procurement. So your financials, the way you structure a deal financially, you can play a lot around with it. As long as the three things which I spoke, customer focus, good commercial mindset, and out of box ideas, thinking, structuring, as long as you have those three deliverables, there is a good chance you can make in any of these three OEMs.
What is the career path trajectory? So the reason I'm more interested in this is because it's the new and a more, as you said, it's a very classy, very flamboyant sector to look at. It's massive, it's huge, right? It's attractive as a sector, but it also means that there is a certain amount of selection bias when it comes to choosing a sector like this, which can be very niche. I mean, kitne plane bikenge? Or itna bada plane main akela thodi na bechunga. And just the layman understanding of somebody who's looking from at this sector from outside. So what would be, say, your three key takeaways for somebody who's looking at aviation as a sector and who's a non-engineer, just graduated? Would you recommend a lateral entry? Would you say that there is room for lateral entries, or do you say that you have to be homegrown? What is your sense on the trajectory?
So I think lateral entries are possible, right? It depends the path you take, right? I'll give you an example. For example, people who work in an airline, right? You may just go into an airline, work into their procurement, understand their procurement process, because we as OEM sell to airlines as well, right? You could then take the know-how or the mindset of how an airline evaluates. You could then basically transgress from an airline to an OEM. That's path number one, right? Obviously, you have to get into an airline first, right? The second path is, a lot of us OEMs have training programs, right? Probably you could get into one of our training programs and then work into various departments, etc., to get into the stuff we do: sales of engines, sales of aircrafts. And the third piece is networking. Somehow if you are from non-aviation industry, but you have certain products that go into an airline, etc. From that airline, if you can branch out the connectivity into OEMs, etc., and somehow find a way to the passion, the customer success, the financial knowledge, and the out-of-box thinking to demonstrate that you can work with structures, yes. And in my team, I've had lateral hires, people who worked in power. They have come in and done a great job on being a sales director in the aviation domain. So
great. So now let me go to a more tactical or more industrial level question. With the current situation, how things have changed, and people have said that, or rather, in our fraternity, everybody's saying that aviation has been modified forever.
Yep.
What do you think are still the positives that exist in this sector for someone who's looking to be a part of this sector as an outsider?
So I don't think so. Aviation has changed forever. I would disagree with that, because I think, yes, there is an impact, but I do see that impact relatively short term, right? I think by the time you have a vaccine or a herd immunity built, people will travel, people will go for vacations, right? Definitely. There will be a lot of pent up demand that will come back once we get ahead of this coronavirus problem. The second thing is, I genuinely feel, I think there have been people saying that, look, travel will go away, travel will reduce, you will have a lot of video conferencing. I do not think that can replace the one-on-one customer relationship connect. I'm finding very difficult to interact with customers over a video call, video conferencing. I don't think so that will happen. You know, you will still have people traveling, meeting customers and doing that. And in terms of opportunities, if you see, I think each and every OEM airline is discovering new opportunities, right? I'll give you, for example, airlines, you know, who were doing passenger operations never thought that cargo can also be a core business. So they've started going into cargo, right? You know, the amount of innovativeness in scheduling, you know, route scheduling is coming out right now, given only 1/3 of fleet can operate, is huge. How you are selling your seats, for example, you can now, airlines are offering that you can now take your middle seat at the same price as you have your aisle seat, for example, right? And I know considering that, okay, why do I need to fly business class? Why don't I buy probably for 4 months down the line when things are good? Why don't I buy 3 economy, settle in there and travel comfortably? So, you know, what happens, you know, every time there is a crisis of this nature, people find innovative ways of surviving, and those innovativeness becomes the new standard for the future. I'm sure, Deepshikha, you'll see in the coming times, you know, airlines focus much on cargo operations. It'll be one of their main domains. Network scheduling, selling seats, commercial operations, that will find new ways of growing. Organic as well as inorganic growth will come in through these processes.
Excellent. Now, Vikram, let me come to your own journey as a leader. I mean, we saw that
Right.
18 years, you're a very, very young leader. And coming to this stage, leading an organization of this stage, what has your journey been like? What are your learnings, and how can the next generation learn from you to get to that level?
When you say next generation, you make me sound very old. So anyways, so so let me, I mean, I'll spend 3-4 minutes on it because I think that there's some of the learnings which I can share, right? I think I've always propagated and felt that your first job, don't work for a company, work for a boss, right? And see what the learnings are. Don't work for money. That is what I would advise the youngsters. Work for all the learnings, you know, just spread your wings and learn. And just to give you an example, I started out in 2002, 30th of May, after having completed my engineering, and probably my aggregate marks was about 50 or 52%. I was rejected in a lot of interviews, but then this company, a startup company, I did a lot of extracurricular activities, dramatic, sports, etc. Found that I can probably have got good communication skills, so they hired me in doing some market research, talking to people, understanding with foreign collaborators. And I started out, Deepshikha, at about 200 rupees a day. It was not a contract or salary, 200 rupees a day. And Saturday, Sunday was not paid for if it was a holiday. From there on, I kind of grew in that organization. I mean, it was like Saturday, Sundays working 16, 17 hours a day, which meant I was procuring the tenders, writing the tenders, submitting the tenders. And as a 23, 24-year-old, I had the opportunity to kind of work with collaborators, doing collaboration with companies like Raytheon, Thales, Aerodata, convincing them that we as HBE are great partners for you, driving the sales cycle. So it was, you know, doing market research, international business development, tendering. For those were my first 5 years, right? So I think the learning was, don't work for money, learn as much as you have, and be passionate for winning. You know, I was so passionate for winning my tenders, being the lowest bidder, etc. From there on, you know, I thought, what should I do? Some of the promises were the startup company. I kind of went ahead and started applying. I knew I did not have an MBA, right? So getting into a top aerospace major will be difficult. So I kind of worked my innovative ways of reaching to the decision makers. So I started writing, okay, you know, enclosing my resume, my strengths, and saying, okay, and on the top of the envelope, it said, confidential, only to be opened by the addressee only, so that it reaches the person. It is not sent in a dustbin. So from there on, I was interviewed by some of the aerospace majors. I got into Rolls-Royce, spent 5.5 years there. I think from there, I kind of had a good business development experience, had the connects, and was then hired into GE as sales director, worked 3 years as sales directors. And I think in 2017 got promoted as the country leader. But I think all along the journey has been learn as much as you can. Your learnings cannot be a, customer relationship, customer focus, bring value to customers. They should not see you as an OEM. They should see you as a part of their family working for solutions, because customers are smart. They figure out that are you just trying to be, OEM centric or company centric, or are you bringing value to them? They should see. I mean, I know for a fact that a lot of airlines now consider me as an extended family. So you have to have that kind of relationship, trust with the, and as a leader, trust your team, develop your team, right? Have them, give them the belief that they have the talent, the wherewithal to survive this journey, motivate them, and work for their betterment. So these are the things probably that helped me grow in my career. I think there's still lots to learn. Uh, so that's in short. I hope I didn't much take time answering this question, because I'm very passionate about it.
So I'll have we have enough time, and we'll take two more questions, the bigger one, then take it forward. So Vikram, this entire, anybody that I've spoken with across the three segments that you talked about, whether it's the airline industry or the airport sector or the OEMs, and I like the optimism that you bring in, and I agree in a large part with that. I love traveling myself, both for work and for personal liking, but we can't deny that it's been one of the most difficult times for aviation, and perhaps hopefully we'll never see anything like this again. So what have you done in the past, say, 6 odd months, and you still look all radiant and sitting pretty at the top of an organization, but there must be a lot of turmoil underneath. How have you managed that?
So I think the way I've managed it, Deepshikha, is with a lot of radiance and optimism that it can only get better, right? But I think in a more realistic way is kind of work and find opportunities right now also, right? As OEMs and airlines, I think there are still opportunities where you can sell your products, structure them in a manner in which airlines can still save costs, take benefit of your products, and keep, at least have the organizational bread and butter going. You may not have the gravy right now, but at least the bread butter going for now onwards. Because look, people are still flying, though it's about 30-40% back to pre-COVID levels. The engines are still running. There is, about, I think 45 to 50% of the fleet is back in service globally. So, the moment things starts looking up, there's always an opportunity. So I think it's about, looking under every stern, looking at every corner, finding opportunities, how little they are, and keep them moving so that, at least you survive these critical months to stay afloat. And after that, you're all ready to go.
What's the mood overall in the sector, particularly the airline industry?
So I think the mood, I will not say is an upbeat mood right now. It's a survival mode, right? I think airlines and everyone is talking as to how we can survive right now for the next 6-7 months, every month. I mean, organizations are taking a drastic cost cutting measures, right? But I think but at the back of everything else, I think there is optimism that this shall pass, and we will emerge stronger and better because of the learnings we've had, the new opportunities we've explored, like cargo, seat selling, route structures, etc. That we will come up stronger, better. I think that's there. And there'll be a lot of pent-up demand that the moment we are able to defeat the virus, we'll come out better.
So, Vikram, just three things, if I were to say that, that support your optimism, particularly from an India perspective, what would those be?
So when you say three things, I missed the second part of the question.
The three reasons which you believe will support this optimism, particularly from an
In
Indian
India?
perspective. Yes.
Okay. So number one is us as a nation and us as a people, right? We are a very resilient lot. I mean, the way we brought up, the way I think Indians are brought up, our education system, the circumstances, and we are a very resilient lot. So one is, as a nation, we are resilient. Second is, India as a country has a lot of domestic demand, right? Right now, I don't think so. Even 1% of people fly, right? It maybe it's close to 1% or so. So that number, the upscope for growth is a lot, right? And third, I think the way our airlines are structured and the focus they have, I use the word jugadu a lot here. Again, that comes from us as people. We will find innovative ways to succeed, to kind of come out of crisis. Our crisis management is of another order. I mean, I have experienced that. I've seen airlines across the globe. I see airlines in India. I think the cost structure, whatever is in their control, they are controlling it to be the best. And I think it's a matter of time when they are able, once this extraordinary circumstances passes by, they will be back in the gear to succeed.
Okay. Hello.
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 Are you
Yes.
able to?
Okay. Great. Sorry. I think that you don't know what gets disrupted when in this digital sphere. So, Vikram, my next question to you is from
Right.
more from a policy perspective. And if you look at the government, the overall, response to this exercise, I mean, of course, government has responded differently for different sectors, but there is no sectoral focus or a sectoral response that has come for aviation. What would your expectations be, if any, or you believe that all of this will get sorted by consumer demand itself?
So I doubt it will be sorted by consumer demand itself. So I mean, my request to the government will be, if some kind of I know it's difficult to do in a country like India where you have hundreds of priorities, right? If there is a way we can find to do some kind of a cash equity into airlines, that would be of great help. Government has taken some measures, right? Like shortening route structure, MRO, right? So if there is a way, my request would be to the government is if where we can look at some kind of cash injection, optimizing the fuel taxes. The ATF is still the highest cost in the world for us in India. If we can look at that, I think that would be very, very good. I think the Vande Bharat is an excellent initiative. You had private, I think government is also allowing private players to participate in that. The Atmanirbhar Bharat is an excellent initiative. If there is a little more focus on the airline per se, where we can focus on some cash injection, some payment deferrals, etc., that would be of great help to us.
Excellent. Perfect. And my very last takeaway before we kind of move to the questions, Vikram, is to understand from you. You've talked about, trusting your team, building a strong team. You started with the 200 rupees per day kind of an allowance, and working for a boss and not working for a company, and working hard and smart in the initial years. But as a leader, what were the three takeaways that you would give to aspiring leaders and your fellows in different companies running operations today? Do this and you will survive and thrive.
So again, the last part, I think your voice broke again. Sorry about that.
I said, what could these leaders do to, one, survive and then thrive basis your experiences? So three takeaways for leaders like yourselves.
I think takeaway number one is explore each and every opportunity, even how little it is, right? Sometimes we do not focus enough on discovering opportunities. We kind of surrender and say, oh God, pandemic, what do I do? Right? Just look around every corner, look under every stone, you will find opportunities. And that's something I've done personally, right? And touch wood, we've been successful at. Second, you as a leader, you can demonstrate all despair, all is hell, all is gloomy, or B, you can say, right, this is tough time. Me and my team is going to survive that. But look, if you look at the other end, it's getting brighter. There is light at the end of the tunnel, right? Have that sense of optimism because your team looks up to you. And if you have that sense of optimism, you will definitely make it through. And the third and the most important is your team. How well you can motivate them, how well you can inspire them, that look, this is our opportunity to rise. You will not get this pandemic again. It always comes once in 100 years. So if you can sell now, if you can make your customers happy now, you can do it anywhere. So it's your chance to really shine right now.
Excellent points, Vikram. Thank you so much. Fantastic 3 points. So now, before I move to the to questions that started coming in, I've got one question on my WhatsApp. It says that we've seen and heard airlines or shutting shop, filing for bankruptcies, helter skelter. What is your sense? How many of them are actually going to survive this?
When you say how many of the survive, is it globally or Indian? I don't know because
question.
Right. So I think in India they are still above water. They have done a lot of innovative means to, at least in the territories which I cover, right? South Asia, Indonesia, etc. So I think airlines have done a decent job of surviving through innovative means, reducing costs. So I don't see, hopefully none of them will file for bankruptcy, and through the smarter versions of finding opportunities, etc., they will be able to scale through. Yes, globally there is an issue. There have been airlines which have been this. So I think one lesson that probably this tells me is, for not only for airline industry, for any business, as cash is king. As long as you've got good free cash flow, as a company, as an individual, you can probably survive any type of crisis.
Excellent. So Siddharth asks, Vikram, given that many aviation companies are focused on making sustainable and more environmental friendly products, will COVID impact the importance of this practice within the aviation companies?
I don't think so. COVID is in any way related to us being not environment friendly, right? There is a lot of say that, engine OEMs, aircraft OEMs contribute to having an unhealthy environment. But, if you do a microscopic study of it, I think aviation contributes only 2% to the unfriendliness in the environment, right? Of that 2%, also, I think efforts are being made to kind of bring it down through better emission standards.
There's another question that comes in, which predominantly talks about the supply chain within the aviation sector. I'm assuming that has been impacted, but would you like to comment on that?
Yes, supply chain has been impacted, but so has the demand been, right? So, your demand for new engines has also gone down. Our supply chain has been impacted. So it's kind of, we are finding the balance right now, how to make it work. So, but I don't see any really cascading effect that will affect our customers.
I understood.
And there'll definitely be an impact, but not an impact that is really not manageable. We'll have to work with customers to get that done.
Understood. Another question comes in and it asks, and please feel free, as I said, that if you believe it, that there's any question which is outside the realms of this conversation, please feel free to pass on. Can you share your experience working with Indigo and its largest purchase from your organization recently?
I can only say it's a fantastic bunch of professionals. the amount of learning I have had from them is great. They work very professionally, very intelligent, and have great out-of-box ideas to work with. So really a great organization, and privileged to be a part of their decision making and all that. So
Great.
that's what I would say.
I'll add a question to that, and just for my knowledge, what is the typical sales cycle for a sale of an aircraft?
So it depends from organization to organization, right? I mean, you see, whenever you order a aircraft, it kind of is not something which is coming in 6 months. For example, I just take an example. If the aircraft is scheduled for delivery in 2024, right, you make an order in 2022. And depending on your organization, typically it is 6 months to 2 years.
That's the manufacturing, or that's the
That's the sales cycle. The sales cycle.
6 to 12 months.
Yeah, 6 to 24 months, because, for example, an organization will take an RFP, do a lot of detailed assessment, which aircraft type suits them, is it airframe A or airframe B, which engine B or engine C, they do route structure, then they have various rounds of negotiation, depending on, again, organization to organization.
Wow. And how many people are typically a part of a sales process?
Very much, again, depending on organization, right? You know, you can have in certain organizations 30 to 35 people looking at it. In certain organizations 10 to 12. In certain organizations 4 to 6.
Interesting. Very nice. So last question as I picked from one of the audiences is Ravi asks, what are the dynamics between the OEMs and airlines in India? Are they different from West? I don't know how dynamics is defined though.
Yeah, so I don't know how to answer that question. When you say dynamics, what does the dynamic mean actually? Is it?
I think maybe it's the relationship and it's the sales cycle again. I mean, I'm assuming that it's how the purchase experience goes, how the purchase is initiated, how the closures happen, how the delivery happens.
I think it's a delivery is same for all customers. The delivery processes, etc. The manufacturing process, it's same. The sales processes are different from region to region because culturally we are all very different.
Great. So Vikram, my last question, and we as we near the closure, what has been one thing from your entire leadership journey that you would go back and change?
What is my leadership journey? I'll go back and change. Probably, you know, in my first few years of leadership journey, right, I was very intense, right? And I thought, you know, why can't my team be, I'm sure a couple of them would be listening, is why can't these guys be so intense as I was? And I think the learning was, look, your team is not an identical twin of. People are different, their motivating factors are different, their sense of purpose is different, right? So you can't expect that you were thinking X in that situation that the person should also be thinking the same. Otherwise, all will be identical twins. Leadership is all about getting all of them aligned to a common objective, respecting their different thought processes, respecting their different individuals, and really aligning them to common vision of customer success, delivering value for customer and delivering for organization. I would change that.
Great, but that intensity has brought you so far, Vikram, and we are ever so proud of having got this opportunity to talk to you and hear your story. Thank you so much, Vikram, for your time. And
thank you, Deepshikha. Thank you very much. All the best.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vikram.